In my last video on Ultimate Halo, we talked about fighting the Guardians in Halo Infinite, but in that video we delved more into the lore around what's happening, the effect they have had on the universe, and how humanity has kept a low profile when it comes to combating them, as when they're detected, their attenuation pulse will bring them right down to disable any power they have. At the end of that video, we then talked about the ways we could fight them from a gameplay perspective. I did only vaguely touch on this topic, but after a bit more thought, I have decided to delve deep into the idea of space or ship battles to combat the Guardians and how it might play out.
Ultimate Halo.
Hey up lads, Fletch here from Ultimate Halo. Thank you so much for tuning into the channel. It would genuinely mean the world to me if you could all subscribe, leave a like on this comment, and I'm really interested to know what you guys think in the comment section. Which ship is better or cooler, the broadsword, the longsword, or the saber from Halo Reach? By subscribing, you're really helping the channel out. I would be indebted to you all. I'm trying to do this as my job, so without further ado, let's get on with the video. Ships, space planes, starfighters, and floaty boys. All things that are in the sky and space, and typically in Halo's history, we tend to be more boots on the ground in terms of combat, with the occasional Banshee or Hornet required to reach your next objective. But in later titles we saw what it was like to board a ship and venture out above the atmosphere to fight the Covenant on a whole new front, as you need to defend the UNSC station Anchor 9. This was a breath of fresh air, and I remember stepping foot into the Sabre and being blown away. Being in space was breathtaking, and it was just as fun. Some people may see this as a gimmick, some might see it as a cool novelty, and others might not take interest at all because they prefer shooting a gun in their hand. All opinions could be equally valid, but the reason why I think this was a great tool for the campaign was because not only did it give a great variety, it also broke up the gameplay and meant that Halo Reach didn't stagnate or become monotonous. Keeping the player engaged at all times is huge for absolutely any video game on the market, so if you're making the player just do the same thing over and over and don't mix it up, they'll get bored fairly quickly and lose interest in your game. So to start off, we're going to take a quick stop tour and just look at the times we've flown ships in Halo games, what's been different about them all, and how Halo Infinite can learn from each of them and potentially improve the mechanics. First of all, I'm actually going to ignore the Pelican Easter egg in Halo Reach on New Alexandria. Even though it's cool as hell, it's also a little bit rough around the edges as it's an Easter egg and it doesn't serve much purpose in terms of gameplay or story perspective. So first of all, we're going to start off with a Long Night of Solace from Halo Reach. This mission was a first for the franchise. It took you out of your boots and pushed you beyond the atmosphere to defend Anchor 9 from the Covenant to eventually battle your way to the ship of the same name. Now in my eyes, this mission is distinctly Halo in terms of how it plays. It puts you in an arena to work your way around, defend the station, and then from there allow you to progress to the Long Night of Solace, invade the ship with low gravity, and then to infiltrate to activate the slip space drive, as such destroying the ship in orbit. The strengths were that it gave you free reign to fire in the given area, but it also wasn't very interesting in terms of replay value if you ask me, as there wasn't much from an exploration perspective. However, I do still love it to this day, and it brought a lot of desire for some fans to have a Halo game based around purely ship combat, which I personally think would be cool as hell, as unlikely as it would be. I would also like to point out this is the mid-section of the game, so it's a perfect way to break the game up and so that the missions didn't feel too alike, which is very important if you ask me, and we eventually get to the mission New Alexandria, which I suppose you could class as a ship mission to a degree, but to be quite honest, it's got a lot of differences, but I will count it for now. In the next mainline Halo 2 launch, 343 had their first go at their very own Halo title and actually introduced two ship combat scenarios, which I've loved, and they also play very differently from the one in Halo Reach, and to this day I still have admiration for these missions as they did a lot of things not seen in a Halo game before. The first mission was Shutdown, so for the first time as a core mechanic you actually get to fly a Pelican. What I'll say is that it felt damn cool being projected out of the UNSC Infinity to see this absolutely gorgeous world below you with such a unique skybox above. It did also have a bit of a Bungie-like approach to it. You had this big open area to explore, and then you went to go get your objective, took out the enemies, went back, take some spires down, rinse and repeat, and then you proceed to the next mission. In terms of variety, I'd say Long Night of Solace is better as a mission just due to there being the Covenant ship, but nonetheless it was an awesome mission. Then at the end of the game we also got the equivalent to a Warthog run from Halo 1 and 3, but in this time a form of a ship. I actually love this mission to pieces. It's not without its flaws, just like any other Halo mission, but I'll admit that I actually think it's an incredibly special one. You start off in the broadsword trying to get to the Didact so you can arm a nuke to destroy the Composer. It does start off quite linear at first, and all of your enemies are stationary turrets, and what this mission does differently is that it's more about your ability to navigate the twists and turns it provides, which typically isn't a thing for Halo when it comes to levels, but eventually it opens up where you can take some sort of power orbs out to lower the defences for Infinity to attack. What I will say let this section down was the fact that you weren't really contested. It would have been cool for the Covenant or Foreigner ships to be flying on your tail before you can deal damage to these cores, therefore heightening the pressure and the rush. But unfortunately, once again, it's just a case of that there are lots of stationary turrets, which doesn't add much challenge, and you can get them from quite a distance, so not really having to manoeuvre in that area isn't much of a problem. So at this point, the key things I'd like to pull out of these missions for ship combat is the following. So enemy combat, being that there should always be something to provide moving up on the action. Navigation and challenge through moving in the environment. How the ships feel and what mobility you have, and how you set up such a mission. These are things that I think make a great ship battle, and if I was to incorporate this into Halo Infinite, what I would do is incorporate the Guardians into this. One of the points I made in my last video was their attenuation pulse. If we were able to find a way to deactivate that, it could be possible to destroy one in orbit by boarding a ship and taking it out, or maybe infiltrating it from this ship. What would be a cool experience is to fight around a Guardian, staving off the Covenant and Prometheans alike to afford time for the UNSC ships to collectively break a gap in the Guardian's defences so you can get inside, much like the Infinity did at the end of Halo 4 to the Didact ship. To add to this challenge throughout it, the Guardian can throw debris at the player to make it tricky to navigate, so it's not exactly a straight shot straight to where you need to shoot. You have to take your shots when the time is right and wait for the correct opportunity to arise. The best way I can think about this is probably in the sense of a traditional Zelda boss, but on a much larger scale and a lot more factors going on at the same time. In terms of the mechanics you can have in normal turrets, and I think the Spartan laser concept from the Pelican in Halo 4 is much more interesting. The reason being is because it takes a bit more skill and timing opposed to the homing rockets from Halo Reach, because all you had to really do is wait for the game and lock on the trigger and then pull. So I think the Spartan laser takes a little bit more skill, and then in terms of manoeuvring the ship we could operate it in a similar way to the Sabre, but also have a bit more weight and feel just like the broadsword from Halo 4, as the weight of the ship made you think about more how you were traversing that environment because you couldn't be too weighty or throw yourself about a lot. Lastly, how do you also set up a mission like this? Honestly, maybe a little bit ambitious, but it would be amazing to see you fire your way out of the atmosphere, kind of like how you did on Halo Reach, but do it in first or third person with some level of player interaction. In all honesty, it's practically the opposite of what you did when going down from Meridian Station from orbit in Halo 5, where you can see the atmosphere and clouds getting closer and closer the nearer to the surface you got, but with that being said, it is the exact opposite way around. Or another example of that could be when you're dropping as an ODST in Halo 3 ODST into New Mombasa. I think seeing it from the perspective of leaving a Halo ring would also be pretty incredible. We've never seen anything like that before, actually leaving a Halo ring from orbit. So, overall, Halo Infinite will most likely have something that breaks up the pace in the game, and make sure that the player does something that varies their experience to make it that bit more memorable. I think there's still a lot of opportunity with Halo Infinite when it comes to what the game will allow you to do, and I think space battles would be a great opportunity to be fleshed out, and potentially it would be cool to see them in their own spin-off game. Once again, let me know in the comments section down below which is your favourite ship in Halo out of the 3 provided. Once again, my name is Jack Fletcher, and a subscription would mean the absolute world to me, and I'll see you next time on the one and the only Ultimate Halo.
Subscribe now to Ultimate Halo for more unfriggin' believable Halo content.